just announced, the policy just announced yesterday, ACT new metric system, okay? So we're gonna focus on two parts. First of all, the interpretations of the policy. It's totally different. After we see the policy, particular metric points, some of you probably will have higher chance to be invited in the future. Some of you, literally speaking, lose the chance to be invited in ACT nominations. So the point is very important. The policy was announced yesterday morning, so all the agents were invited to the seminar held by ACT migration team. They explained the structures of the metric points and the implements of the policy, but some details I would say still yet to be confirmed. So there were some points, some interpretation of some definitions. It's a bit confusing, but we'll find out. We'll figure those problems in the coming 2 days. Even the ACT government migration team suggests us to gather the questions from the clients and find out the parts which is not clear, send feedback to them, and they will try to explain those details by email. So let's get started, okay? So why change? Interestingly, the ACT policies remained quite stable during the past 3 years. One of the best, one of the best among all those state nominations. Very stable, but suddenly since 2016, I would say late 2016, early 2017, suddenly shows its advantage compared to the rest of states. So here, that's a quote from the discussion paper, which was released 2-3 months ago. So there's one thing in particular I highlight as well, are other jurisdictions. Here I would say particularly mention to Tasmania. Last year, 2017, Tasmania used to be one of very popular states for state nominations, quite easy. But then suddenly, Tasmanian government changed the policy, make it a bit difficult for certain group of people. In the meantime, independent skill migration, which we refer to 189 visa applications, it's getting hard, difficult, more and more difficult. So suddenly, if you look all around Australia, ACT suddenly become one of the easiest. Particular, that's one stream I will mention about following. That is first of all, we can see the chart first. You can see the number for applications, and actual nominations. The allocations which is receiving, ACT migration team receive from the Department of Home Migration, it's always around 800 to 800 rounds. This year they say probably they'll get more, but it hasn't been approved yet. But you can see that there's a dramatic increase during last financial year. It's over 1,000, I would say 1,300 or something. It's much more, so the demand is much more than supplies, okay? So they have to do something to deal with the situation. We can see particularly it's a rapid increase for the vocational training, so diploma students. I know some of you heard the news. Some of you were introduced by friends. Some of you are introduced even by agents. Okay, but one thing if we look back, one thing ACT migration team didn't do so well is they don't give you informs. Okay, they didn't inform you, say, hey, we have so many people coming, but they didn't even see the situation coming. They don't have the mechanisms to communicate with each other, which are the education providers and the migration departments. They don't have communication regularly, so they don't know how many people coming. So for education providers, so they probably would use the policy to encourage people to come because it's profits. So then suddenly you have like 500, 1,000 people studying in diploma courses. But in the meantime, ACT government saying, hey, I don't have that much allocations available. And then that's a parade, demonstrations happens, and the government feel the plus, and they say we stop it, we have to renew the system, we have to come up with something which is more sustainable for the future. So that's basically what happens. Anyways, changed. So let's see what has been changed. That's the pathway we mentioned about. It's pretty easy last year. What has been changed? I keep on mentioning there will be merit-based systems. Basing on two priority considerations. One is commitment to living in Canberra. Second thing is your potential economic contributions to the territory. In details, three things has been changed. One, occupation list. Second thing is the inviting order. And the third thing is the metric pointing ranking has been introduced to monitoring the whole program. Third thing, occupation list. If you're familiar with the old policy, ACT nomination guidelines, there was an open and closed list. Well, it's a bit confusing. I often getting inquired about what's the differences between open and closed list. It actually makes no differences. If you apply an onshore, it makes no differences. You can apply any occupation from both lists. It only restricts certain applications from overseas. So overseas applicants normally can only apply those ones on the open list. So it makes no differences, open and closed list. Altogether, it counts about 400 occupations around, okay? 30 to 40 on open list, the rest are on closed list. Interestingly, the most popular nomination occupation, which is accountant. Accountant remains on closed list for the past 2-3 years, but it doesn't affect your application at all. So it makes no differences. Now, there will be a new open and closed list designed to cope with a new metrics inviting system. It should be announced together in the coming 2 weeks. So it will be still open and closed list, but the government say they're going to do some change. So some occupation, around 30 occupations from the closed list will be moved into the open list. In the meantime, those occupation was on the open list should be remain on the open list. Interesting, the question is, will accountant be removed back to the open list? The answer is no for this time. No accountant major and no IT major, okay? But will that affect your applications? Not really, you can still apply. So it goes like, you can still apply as long as you have occupations on open list or closed list. But this will affect your points, okay? So that will affect your points because ACT government defined open list as the in-demand list. For example, engineers, okay? They give their explanations, which are kind of making sense. Let's say, well, you see all the constructions, you see the railways, you see all the buildings going up. And I need, for example, constructions, engineers, civil engineers. I even need interior designers. These are in-demand occupations. Accountant, not so many job opportunities, so not in demand. Will they change this occupation list? Maybe in the future. They say we're going to do a reviewing, probably each 6 months, maybe. But currently, this is very important because it will affect your points later on. Accountant is on the closed list, okay? IT is on the closed list. We're going to see the final version of both closed and open, both occupation list along with the new policy. They will publish somewhere around 25th, okay? You will see the final version. Application order before, okay? Before, how does it work when you want to apply for ACT nominations? It goes like, you create your EOI, so you need to meet the minimum requirement for EOI points. As the department raised 5 points, so now it's 65, okay? You, by yourself, need to have 60 points, okay? 60 points EOI, combining by age, qualifications, English proficiency, 60 points. And then you need to have a skill assessment. If you're an accountant, get your skill assessment done as an accountant. If you're IT student, get your skill assessment done as a software engineer. Things like that. This is the things you need to meet minimum requirements for the department. Then you go to see ACT criteria. The old version for ACT criteria, I won't say it's complicated, but it goes like, they divide people into different criteria according to your visa, what kind of visa you're holding. For example, if you're student visa holders, then you have to leave, for example, 12 months, you have to complete this and that. If you are, working holiday visa holders, and there are different requirements. So the old system somehow dividing the applicants into different pathways and different criteria, okay? as long as you meet the criteria set for your criteria, for your category, and as long as you meet all the criteria, if you apply for application, first come, first serve. Okay, so saying if we're talking about old policy, all of you probably applying to meet different criteria. But anyway, you can apply now, and first come, first serve. I will make a metaphor. Somehow like the old policy, ACT migration is like 24-hour service at McDonald's. Okay, every people wait in line to buy the burgers. As long as you have $20 of credit points, I'll serve the burgers. Keep on serving. If there's 100 people waiting, I have to keep on serving you the burgers until there's no burgers, which is happening now. So it doesn't really matter like if you have more money in your pockets. All I need is 20. That's it. Wait in line, I serve the burgers. This is what they do, first come, first serve. And they mentioned, AC government keep on mentioning before, okay? We don't rank applicants. We don't rank applicants, okay? We make no priority to certain groups. As long as you meet the criteria, you will be invited. You will be invited, okay? This is the old policy, but now it will go like this. Again, EOI points. That's required by the Home Affairs, so you have to do it. Skill assessment as well. Then you go to metric system. So you have 60 points about self. You have a counter skill assessment. You had to go to the metrics. It's a complex system. You pass the metrics, go to the metrics. High points will be invited. Then you can apply. So they only pick the higher points, highest points for invited. Okay. How does it work? More detail. EOI points, skill assessment. Then you have to meet your eligibility. This is something I will unfold the criteria for eligibility. So you have to meet eligibility first. Eligibility relates to three categories mainly: residency, English proficiency. What else? English proficiency, residency, and one more thing. I'll explain to you. And then you go to metric system to check how many points you have. And then, if your points is good enough, which means your points is very competitive, saying this month, say next month actually, next month there's 100 people who already meet the eligibility. They all apply for metric system, and among those 100 people, ACT people are going to decide to invite the top 30, and the cutting off points is 65. So every people who have over 65 will receive an invitation from ACT governments. And that invitation will valid for 14 days. So you have 14 days to submit the supporting documents for claiming the 60 points you say you have. For example, you say, I have 4 years of residency in ACT. Provide me the evidence within 14 days. And then, after you're providing all the documents within 40 days, in the meantime, you pay the fee. So you only pay the fee here, after you receive the invitation from the governments, not the metrics part. So metrics for free. You can do metrics for fine. Okay, you can do it every day if you want. But eventually, probably the government get annoyed something. But anyway, it doesn't cost you any money. Okay, you only pay the fee when you receive the invitations. Pay 300 fee, and then the government say, okay, as you've been invited because your points are very competitive, you have 70 points, and you submit all the supporting documents. I'll take 45 days to look at your cases, okay, to see if the points matches the documents. If that is what is, you will receive nomination. If the documents you're providing doesn't meet the points you're claiming, saying you're claiming for 4-year residency, but all the documents you're providing can only show you only living in ACT for 3 years, so it doesn't match, refuse. Okay, go backwards again. You can apply again. Okay, 300 not refunded, but saying you get nominations, apply for the visa. So it goes like this system. If you're familiar with New South Wales, if someone of you have been applied for New South Wales state nominations, very similar. It's very similar. It's even very similar to Canada. What is that? Federal Express. Very similar. Okay. So anyway, you have to go through those steps. Three steps actually, particularly. Inviting points. I keep on yesterday after the news being announced. When people see these metrics, and they were asking how many points can be very competitive. Difficult to answer at this stage, particularly, because if you ask me, because now if you see the inviting points for accountants in 190 visa, you see the going up and down, but that's been after 2 years. Lots of people applying, and they come up with a mechanism. But For the inviting point for ACT metrics, I would say it will go through several periods. The first periods, the point does not really show any, it's not the number you're looking at to compare our situations, because not every people will be eligible to apply if we see the eligibility data. So lots of people who have higher points can only apply after a certain time. Maybe after we see, maybe after 3-4 months, the points were getting stable, and that's the cutting. You're going to see the cutting of points, okay? Maybe 65, 60, and then you're going to compare your points to that. If you have the more points, maybe you have a higher chance for next round. So I would say inviting rounds. First question, inviting rounds. Government say monthly. Which date? Not confirmed yet. Somewhere around maybe mid-15th. So the first round of the invitation might be 15th of December. Well, yes, next 15th. Okay, possibly. So, well, how does it work? Like on the 15th, saying on the 15th, they'll look at all the people who are applying priority to the date, and then they'll pick the top 30. Send the invitations. Next month, again, how many people in the waiting line send the invitation, top 30, going on and on like this. And in the meantime, they will publish the cutting off points. They're going to show the cutting off points, 60, 65. So give you some suggestion, to prepare for your points. Quota, how many? How many, people they're going to invite each month? Not sure yet, again, okay? They say in the long term, they would like to set up a very fixed quota, maybe saying 100 invitation monthly. And but at the first couple rounds, they say the first 6 months are the testing periods. So they're going to set a quota. Maybe this month 30, next month 40, and then they will try a couple rounds to see which one is the most sustainable, because they don't know how many people are going to apply. That's the problem. And they don't know how many points are the good points for the governments. Because government, it's very apparent. The government going to try to pick top ones, those ones who can contribute to economic and make the commitment. So they have the choice. Okay, so government have the choice to make the system more beneficial for ACT economies, generally speaking. And it also depends on other people's points. Okay, so saying this is the people who will be eligible to apply next month. That's about 2025. Okay, and the government say we only invite 5 people. So it's about your points, all of your points. Some have maybe 80 points, very competitive. Okay, you might be the one of the lucky ones among the 5. So it's about how many points other people are going to have. So it will be complicated. And interestingly, because we joined several consultation meetings during the past couple months, we hear some criteria. The consultation team keep on mentioning residency, ACT residency will be one of the good criteria. They're definitely going to put on into the metric system. So when it comes to residency, overseas applicants, shows no advantage at all. They never live in ACT. So the interesting this time, I'm just talking about this particular criteria. So they designed 2 pathways. Okay, you can apply under Canberra resident, or you can apply under overseas applicants. So both, there will be 2 pathways, pathway A and pathway B. Both pathway, going to join the same point ranking if we're talking about this as a pool. Okay, so you will be, literally speaking, you will be competing with the overseas applicants. So the ACT nomination is not shutting down for overseas applicants. It remains open for overseas applicants, but we can see the points later. Only, some people can apply, but we don't know how many, because we're talking about overseas, okay? The ACT residents, maybe 2,000, you're competing with 2,000 people, but we're talking about overseas. I'm from China, okay? We have 1.2 billion population, so it's a big market. And some people from India, there's lots of people. Even we're talking about, even the conditions is very, very strict, but again, there will be people who can meet the criteria. So, literally speaking, you will be competing with the overseas applicants. If they invite 50 people per month, maybe 20 of them will be overseas. Government suggesting we're going to see the data and do some adjustments, saying if among the 50 applicants, there are 40 overseas, which means the system apparently showed the advantage for the overseas applicants. They're going to do some point change to make it balance for the Canberra residents. At the meantime, if there's no people applying for overseas, then probably they will give more points to overseas applicants. You have to understand, ACT government this time, they very much focusing on the contribution to ACT economic. All of you, most of you, Canberra residents, so your contribution to ACT is you pay the tuitions. You're living here, you pay the rents, probably you buy the property, and maybe your spouse, your partner is also living here. That's your contribution. Commitment, you've been living here, that's commitment. Study here, commitments. Overseas, what can overseas people bring to ACT economic? You see, if they are overseas migration, now they come with a family. They come to settle down in ACT, they buy properties. And lots of overseas applicants, shows the advantage in skill levels. Lots of them being employed for 5-10 years, okay? So this is what they see the distribution. So overseas applicants still included in the application. So you're gonna competing with overseas applicants. That's something you probably want to pay attention to. Help? It's pretty clear, right? What I'm trying to explain. Eligibility. So now we just looked at Canberra resident pathway. Okay, all of you Canberra residents, check your eligibility first, because this is something before the metrics points. Okay, you have to meet the eligibilities before you look at the points. Okay, what are the eligibilities? Skill assessment for sure. Find a job. It's very interesting here. All the Canberra residents, regardless what kind of visa you're holding, doesn't matter. You need to have 3 months employment, minimum 20 hours per week, 3 months, okay? Previously for ACT saying, master graduates, you only need to have providing 2 payslips. Literally speaking, can be 2 weeks. So prior to your application, you can work 2 weeks and then you can start to apply. This is the government explained going like, lots of employee think it's not stable. Okay, lots of employee, people going to the restaurant and say, hey, boss, I need a job. I work very hard. And then after 2 months, they resign. So they try to extend the employment length for the benefit for the employer. So 3 months, all of you need to find a job and 20 hours per week, lasting for 3 months. And while you're applying for ACT nomination, you need to remain working in job. Not particularly this job, you can change job if you want, but you need to have a job. Before there's a definition for the job, skill level 1 to 4, right? And lots of people asking, like taxi drivers, waiter, wages. This time there was no definitions for the job. So literally speaking, you can find any job if you want, but it needs to meet the minimum requirements for the national pay rate and supers. This is Australia, everything is legal. So supers, paid, tax paid, 20 hours. You need to evidence to show you have 20 hours employment for at least 3 months before you need the job employment eligibility. Okay, and this can you use the evidence of self-employment to meet this criteria? Yes, you can. So you can open if taxi driver, Uber driver is a good example. Okay, but the details, for example, like Uber driver is kind of complicated. We need to confirm how you're going to prove you work for 20 hours. Because Uber doesn't pay you like that way. They pay you an amount of the salary weekly or fortnightly. They don't show.
You can find payslip in the Uber application.
What is that?
In the Uber application, when you log in, you can see how much time you are logged in.
Yes,
so you can see 20 hours, and after you can
okay,
see
that's good. But if you see the payslips, you couldn't see that, right?
No, in payslip also there.
That's a good thing. So, saying if you have A, B, and by yourself, okay? Uber is a good example. If you want to start a company or you already have a company, you employ by yourself 20 hours, and the pay rate should be fair. Okay, it should be fair. So 3 months, that's one thing. So this is something you can bear in mind. Find a job. If you already have, congratulations, you meet the criteria, at least one of the criteria. Then PT. Okay. If you're familiar, that means English. Okay. If you prefer IELTS, then go with the IELTS. Okay. The PT requirements suddenly become compulsory requirements for most of people. Before there was no English requirement there was a requirement from the Home Affairs Office, but there was no requirement from the state government. They're asking for 6 each in terms of IELTS, 6 each. Now it's 7 each. All of you, 7 each. Because the definition is, if your nomination is ANSCO major occupation group 1, which means managers, if your occupation is managers, or your group is professionals, all of you are professionals. If you're accountant students, IT, accountants, designer, all professionals. So as long as your nomination, unless you're nominated as a chef or something, there should be level 3, so you don't need English criteria. But all of you, most of you will be group 2. So if you group 2, you need to demonstrate you have a proficient level of English. Proficient means 7 each. Easily you can go with PTE, 65 each. So this is second requirement, compulsory for most of you. 3 months employment and 7 each. Okay, so this is 2 things. And residency. Residency. If you're student visa holder or temporary graduate visa holder, you need to live in ACT for at least 12 months. This is exactly the same like before. If you other kind of visa holders, saying working holiday visa holders, then 3 months. So this is not, residence is not getting difficult. It's remained pretty much the same. So there's 2 things has been changed. The length of employment has been increased to 3 months instead of 2 pay slips. Okay, employment 3 months before you apply. English have been raising up from 6 each to 7 each. Okay, so this is criteria. If you all have the criteria ready, then we're going to look at the metric points. So you should start to prepare the documents. Metric points. If you have mobile, if you have a phone, you can start to calculate your points. I will show you the detailed version of the points later. And yep, then you can know how many points you have. First of all, residency, ACT residency, definitely. If you've been living ACT for a long time, like 4 or 5 years, you have 20 points. Then it goes decreased by years. So if you've been living the ACT, saying most people will be 1 to 2 years or 2 to 3 years, that's 5 or 10 points. So you're gonna write it down 5 or 10 or 15 points. Okay, residency points. Interestingly, what about Queanbeyan? There's a question before about Queanbeyan. It's kind of a place belong to nowhere, belong to not, it's like, is it Canberra, is it New South Wales? Well, interesting saying, if you're living somewhere 30 minutes drive, commute to Canberra, it's also acceptable. So it's really depending how fast you drive. 30 minutes, okay? So anyway, but Queanbeyan is calculated within this area. Okay, Queanbeyan is fine, 30 minutes drive is fine, Cook must be fine, I don't know where else is fine. Okay, so 30 minutes is fine, not a problem. And you need the better English. So English not just gets you through, not just get you past the eligibility, it gets you more points. It gets you more points. So you saying you need to meet the 7 each requirement anyway, which is we call proficient level. And you need to meet the proficient level anyway. Proficient level will give you 10 points. Okay, so you have to include this 10 points. Otherwise, you couldn't apply from the beginning. So you're gonna have 10 points anyway. 10 points plus the residency.
What is considered superior?
Oh, superior. Superior is like if you're talking about PT, 79 each. 79 each. If it's IELTS, 8 each. I would try to go PT, much easier. Okay, much easier. Okay.
More complicated.
More complicated. Just take some time. Tricks.
One of my friends, he sit in PT like 18 times.
18 times.
Yeah, 18 times.
Okay.
And then, he said, oh, I wanted to apply for student. And then he got 8 each. Before he was saying, I'm going to apply permanent.
But generally speaking,
this is just like very tricky.
Tricky things. Generally speaking, we're talking about general cases because I was never a teacher. I was never an English teacher. But in China, not my school. I managed a school teaching IELTS for 1 and 5 years. I can tell you an example. I see some people who have 8 each from IELTS in China. There's not many people who can do that. But I see many people who have 79 each from PTE, alive. I can see people walking on the street with their points. I can see people with full score in PTE, alive. And I never see people who get 9 each from IELTS. It's impossible because it was tested and it was the whole test was defined by human beings, and this is by machine. Generally speaking, machine are not stupid, but stubborn somehow. You know, you can find the rules; they don't change as mind. You can't convince a native speaker saying, "Hey, my English is better than you." Okay, but you can, you know, fool the machine. So trust me, PT is the way you're gonna go for the superior level. My suggestion is, if your English level, saying if you took IELTS exam before, your overall score is about 7, that's a good chance you can get superior. Okay, if your IELTS score is like 6.5, you very close to proficient level in PT. Pretty easy. Okay, I know some very good school. We have one, but unfortunately we don't. Maybe yeah, we have the school here. This is actually the PT school. I'm not sure if they will open, you know, English speaking classes. Maybe there should be. There should be. Okay. Again, having the job is very, very important. Altogether, the job criteria will be dividing for several parts. Because I'm going to unfold the full versions for you later. It can contribute to you 25 points maximum. So this is very important. So it depends how long you're employed, what kind of job you're employed. This system, generally speaking, is very complicated. You know, for state level, okay, you must spend a lot of time working on it. And I don't know if that making sense. So you better be not alone, okay? You better have a spouse, okay? If you have a spouse who are happily living in ACT, congratulations. Literally speaking, he or she gonna contribute to you, you know, some points, which is very crucial in terms of application. Get you some points other people don't have. One thing, partner English. So if your partner can also attend superior or proficient level, so both, okay? So 7 each. If your partner has 7 each, and she's living in ACT, 5 points. They give you 5 points. And your partner being employed, up to 15 points. This is some interpretations I'll explain later. So the highest points that you can get from the spouse for her employment, 15 points. That's a lot, okay? And what about family ties? Family tie here means if you have a spouse, partner, and child who are ACT residents or partner in permanent residency, well, this is probably not going to happen to you, okay? What happens if your partner is citizenship and you are not? Maybe they should. Sometimes, you know, if you marry someone and you don't want to, if you have an Australian citizen partner, but you don't want to go to the spouse visa because they take about 3 years, and you can use that as an advantage applying for secure migration. So the state nomination, they can contribute 20 points. Okay, so this is something will contribute some points if you have, like, saying family members or spouse. Yep.
Yep. Does de facto count as partner?
Yes. Yes. This is Australia. Okay. De facto, it's marriage. So qualification points. Qualification points. Here means any kind of not any kind. The qualification you gain from any country, literally speaking, internationally, not just all the Australian qualifications. So for some, and not just ACT qualification. So if you get a master's degree from Sydney University, not a problem. You get 15 points. Meantime, you have a master's degree from India, not a problem, 15 points. So this is pretty fair for everyone. Everyone get the points for qualification level. Okay. And then there's one more thing called ACT study. So this is something I would say particularly designed for ACT, tertiary study, UC or NU students, and ECIT and all those diploma schools. Most people will get 10 points. This is an advantage. If you're studying ANU for 2 years, 2 to 3 years, you get 10 points. You get 10 points. You study in Sydney before, you don't get these points. It's ACT study points. One thing very interesting, a PY professional year, if you are IT students or engineering students, accounting students as well, you should be familiar. Professional year in ACT can be included into the study. So you say after 2 years studying in ACT, graduate from a master's degree in accounting, then you continue another 1 year of professional year in accounting. That should count as 3 years. Okay, there should be 3 years.
Question.
Yep.
Do you get points while you're still studying? Like the course runs for 2 years, but you're halfway there, like a year. Do you get the 5 points?
What is that? Sorry.
Do you get points while you are still studying?
You're studying for 1.5 years? Yeah.
Yeah, if the course runs for 2 years and you study for just 1 year,
So saying,
still studying,
okay,
you
I
get the
understand.
5.
So saying your curriculum registration, the length of curriculum is 2 years,
Yeah.
but you complete the course for 1.5. I would say it's not 2 years. I would say it's not 2 years. But this is something, again, this is something like we don't see any interpretation, detailed ones.
No, I mean you are still studying, you haven't completed the course
You
yet.
haven't completed the courses. Here, ACT points means, just a second. You have to be completed, okay?
Okay.
It's completed, completed. Yep.
For instance, if you're doing a Cricos registered course,
Yeah.
if you're doing professional year program, but you still get only 5 points.
So just merely, you never done any courses in ACT before, but just the PY
No,
course.
in ACT.
In ACT, yeah?
You do a Cricos registered course
Yep.
and PY course
Yeah.
together
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah.
Do you get 5
Well,
points?
you don't get like, for example, if you study like 3 courses at the same time, you don't get like
So there's
3
no
courses.
point on
You see the length, so overlapping doesn't count.
Yeah, so there's no point on doing Cricos.
Well, I couldn't see anything from the paper. I don't see the interpretation in that way, okay? Because they try to. This is pretty simple. They just try to encourage you to increase you to stay longer. Okay, it doesn't make any sense for, counting the overlapping courses. Prospective applicants. Interestingly, well, here means anyone who can to ACT, become a resident of ACT before 29 June 2018, you get 10 extra points. Remember, lots of people was asking about grandfather period, right? Grandfather policies. When I be grandfathers, this is the grandfather policy. So if you look at the grandfather policy, we just give everyone 10 points. It make you, it give you 10 points because you're being ACT residents before they change the policy. I will give you 10 points. You're gonna hold advantage compared to people who arrive after the day, okay? But generally speaking,
Is this the resident based new interpretation or the old interpretation?
here the interpretation will be very interesting. There was no detail again, but they explained this particular saying, as long as you have the evidence to show me, you are saying, bank statement started, let's say a week before, and you rent the apartment a day before, something like that, we'll count for that. We'll count this. So, but if you apparently you arrive in ACT in August, know this 10 points. And one more additional rules is this category will cease on 30th June of 2019. So before, if you couldn't apply the metrics before 30th June 2019, this 10 points gone, okay? So it's like they give you another, this financial year, now 7 months to you, give you the extra 10 points. But again, this is a point testing system. You have this 10 points, other people all have this 10 points. So it definitely gives you no advantage compared to the rest of potential applications, okay? No advantage at all. But this is, well, they do lots of consultations. They're gonna publish a consultation report, say like 14, 15 pages or something. But they're gonna include it. This is prospective applicant.
What I mean is you needn't have had a job for 3 months before.
No. This is
just
something
when
separate.
you
This separate.
yeah.
I would say this is criteria you can count for 10 points. Everyone, okay? 10 points, not a problem. Assets, yeah. I think maybe Geocom did lots of lobbying. Yeah, the big construction company. Because they say if you have a property in ACT and net worth, $250,000, which is apartment, they give you 5 points. Okay, but anyway, this is one of the criteria. Property company must have a job. But again, it's only 5 points. 5 points. So you can consider as extreme options. Yesterday we have one facing for Chinese-speaking customers, students. Some of them already have a property in ACT. Well, they give you 5 points. But again, mortgage loans doesn't count. Okay, you need to provide you have net profits for over $250,000. Okay, and also business. If you have a business in ACT and the minimum total is $100,000, and you are the main holder. Again, 5 points. So, so this is the assets points, 5 points. You can look at the details. Maybe doesn't apply to the majority. Okay? And I think I forgot to mention one most important thing, which is open and closed list. Okay, open points, open occupations have 20 points. Okay, closed ones don't, no points. So any engineer students, 20 points.
Any engineers? Regardless.
We have to see if it's on the list. Generally speaking.
What about electronics?
Electronics should be on the list. I can. Well, the final version will be published in 2 weeks, but as long as your occupation is on the list, you have 20 points. You have 20 points. I will personally think this is the biggest differences. But again, I would say, according to our experiences, the majority of applicants remain on the closed list. So don't think about it, okay? Because you couldn't change your occupation anyway. Open list, engineering students, okay? So try to get rid of the engineers if you can, but if you couldn't, just don't worry about it, okay? And closed list ones. So you're competing with the closed list, most of them. Accounting students, engineering students. This is onshore, Canberra residents. So how many points you have? You should be able to have an idea, like how many points you're gonna have. I'm gonna show you the clear versions, then we'll do a calculation. Have a points, now you should be able to tell like, yep, so these two I already explained before, which is ACT residence, very simple, and English proficiency, easy. These two easy ones. And then if you can see, this spouse points, if you can see here. Okay, spouse points, English proficiency, sorry. Spouse points, if your spouse have superior proficient English, 5 points. This is the spouse points, and then nomination points. You can see here. Okay, don't look at me. Look at me. Yeah. Okay. If the nomination is open, 20 points. If it's not in the open list, 0 points.
Excuse me.
Yep.
So if I doesn't live in ACT,
That's a
can I
problem.
clear the list from you?
No. Actually, it will affect your applications. Your partner need to live in ACT if he's in Australia.
Does it need to be living in the 12 months? Or it's just
I have to see the definition. I think there was a definition somewhere. Yeah, but anyway, generally speaking, I'll explain to you later. Generally speaking, if he or she is living in the United States, it would definitely affect your applications. Because they need to see both. They want to see both, okay? It's kind of creepy, but they want to see both. Okay? Yeah, but offshore is fine. If you're going back to China, that's not a problem. That's not a problem, okay? So, yeah, this is the resident thing. And then this is the points for length of current ACT employment. So, if you've been employment in ACT, remember you need to have a minimum 3 months employment. If you continue employment up to, say, 6 months, you get 5 points. If it's more, what is that?
But it says over here in the last 2 years.
Last 2 years, yes.
So what if someone did the job last year and then left this year, but it's over 1 year, so still get 10 points?
Yes, you can. I believe yes, you can. I believe yes, you can. Okay.
So if somebody did the job last year for like 15 months and then just left it like 3 months ago, still 10 points?
I think so, but you need to find a job another 3 months before meeting the criteria, because that one's saying working, this one's saying have worked. Okay, I'll understand this policy in this way. If it's more than 12 months, then 10 months. So this is just for the length of employment, and this is go like what type of employment you have. This you can see here the first 15 points give to if you're working in open nominated occupation, means you are engineering students. Okay, saying engineer, your engineering occupation is on the open list, and you have exactly the same, same engineering occupations, employments, and then employment lasts for 3 months, you get 15 points. So you need to have an open nomination. Meanwhile, working for this particular occupation, you get 15 points. Okay, it's kind of complicated, but the whole idea going like they want to encourage people to working for the open, to find an occupation from the open list. Yeah.
Like in total, he would have 35 points.
15 points.
Means 20 plus 15, 35.
Where's 20?
Well,
Yes, that's an advantage. But basing on if he has 3 months employment, that's 35 points. Big differences, very big differences. Okay, but say if you're accounting students, and accounting is not on open list, we already confirmed that. But say if you're accounting students, and somehow you find an engineering job, because engineers are on open list, you get 10 points. Or I will be very confused. How did you find the job? Yeah. So anyway, give you 10 points anyway. Okay, and then it goes like, if you're working for ANSCO level 1 to 3 job, no level 4 anymore. So level 4 can give you points if you're working for a long time, 6 months and 12 months. They give you 5, 10 points. But if you're working for ANSCO level 1 to 3 job, you only need to work for 3 months, which is the entry level 3 months, then give you another 5 points. Okay, so they want a higher level of employment, some kind of encouragement. And then you can see here, previous ACT employment, your question being answered. Here, another additional 5 points for you. Okay, I think it should be like two together. You can get 2 points, two criteria. Okay, about those definitions, what we do is we're gathering questions, as I mentioned at the beginning. We send those questions to the government to clear out all those doubts. Okay, because in terms of the clearing points, like there were so many situations, and they probably never think about it. Okay, but we'll get the answer in the coming 2-3 days. And then it goes to spouse employment, again, quite complicated. Spouse need to work in ACT, okay, for sure. If your spouse is working at least 3 months in an open occupation in ACT, so say if you have a spouse, she happened to work as graphic designer. Graphic designer is an open list. She give you another 15 points. This is also very important, 15 points. Okay, if you have a spouse and happily she have a job. So if you have a spouse now, I would try to do it in this way. Go home, talk to your spouse, get her to find a job. Okay, find an open list job. Okay, you can buy her diamond ring whatsoever. Okay? Get an open job. Okay, then give you 15 points. Even add up more points, then you find a job somehow. Okay, and only 3 months. 3 months, open occupation job, 15 points. That's a lot. Okay, and then if your spouse not working an open occupation job, but she's accountant. Okay, she's accountant. She has accountant skill assessment, and she's working as accountant in ACT. 10 points. Okay, 10 points. Skill assessment match the current occupation. 10 points, and then it goes like, if your spouse is working as engineer, software engineer, but she doesn't pass the skill assessment, but she holds a computer or related system related qualification, 5 points. So it means that your education meets your employment, 5 points. And then currently working in any occupation, 5 points. So interestingly, these two make no differences. This is something I mentioned yesterday. It's quite stupid because it makes no differences. But anyway, you get 5 points. The minimum points you can get from your spouse's employment is 5 points, maximum 15 points. And I would say, I'll particularly mention to you, this is a secret, okay? Remember very clearly, these 15 points is very, very important, basing on if you have a spouse, okay? If you don't have, and that's your problem, okay? So if you have a spouse, 15 points, this is something you should work it out. Easiest, okay, easiest. And then goes like this. Study level at teacher institutes. So as I mentioned before, here, it doesn't matter if it's Australian qualification or graduate from any country, as long as international educational institutes. Like, for example, those kind of definitions, they don't explain to you, based on common sense, okay? I would say most countries are international, okay? And 2015, 10, 5 months. And here is ACT study points, and here particularly mentioned study completed. So you must complete it completed at an ACT tertiary institute. So all the qualification must be completed. And there was some transitional requirement saying from 1st July 2019, the points for 1 year study will become 0. So next financial year, there was no points for 1 year study. You can see the suggestion. You can see the hints. They don't encourage 1 year study anymore. 2 years better, 2 years better, not 1 year. Which somehow kind of looks like targeting on 1 year diploma courses, okay?
Excuse me?
Yep.
Well, I have transferred from Brisbane,
Yep.
and I'm just completing my master degree from here, accounting,
Yep.
and I have only left with 1 year. So from 1st of July 2019,
Yep.
my points will be considered 0.
I think so. I think so. I think so. I think so. This is, if the timing is right, that's probably gonna happen. I know, like this system is not perfect. Again, it doesn't show the fairness for every applicants, but they have so many applicants anyway, so they can't see, like, for example, I will give you special conditions, special, explanations on terms. Like this morning, I have a Chinese client came to see, hey, I don't have parents. Well, I don't have parents, but I have an aunt. I live with my aunts for 20 years. Can I get we call family type points, because they contribute 20 points. Her aunt is Austrian citizen, but again, I have to see the legal documents. Okay, if you want to claim, provide legal documents, adoption or something. You can't just say, hey, show the sympathy. I don't have parents. Okay, but this is Australia. Everything is based on documents. Okay. And last page, just last page. Prospective, as I mentioned before, as long as you can prove, everyone can get it. Okay, as long as you can prove you can be a residence before 29th June 2019, everyone get 10 points. Assets, if you have some money, think about it. I wouldn't suggest. This is not your best options. It's much cheaper to find a spouse. Okay, $250,000. Close family time, close family if you have. So all the points, you probably have the points in mind, 50, 55. If you ask me, like, will 55, 50, or even 60 be competitive? My answer will be, in the coming 3 months, my suggestion will be submit your application as soon as possible, which means who gets me the eligibility first probably will share some, holding some advantage, because for example, yesterday we have like 150, 160 Chinese students. Some they're not students, but Chinese. They will have like from 50 even to 80 points. Most of them, we have 50 to 60 points. But again, they don't have one thing, or some of them have two. They have one thing. They don't have 3 months employment. Okay, they're trying to find a job. So if you already have employment already, or maybe you need another month to meet the 3 months employment criteria, and you might need some time for PT as well. Get those 2 things done as soon as possible. Okay, submit your application, because you probably think, well, I have 55 points, but my friends have 75, but she's not looking for a job. Okay, so maybe she can only apply after 1 year. By then, the cutting off points were going up, because you can see lots of points were increased by time. Residency going up by time, employment going up by time, even the spouse points going up by time. They leave you 1 year to find a spouse. Okay, you find a spouse, you get 20 to 30 points. Okay, and this is something you have to think about it. I would say at this stage, eligibility is even more important than points. Okay, get your eligibility met, and then no matter how many points you have, unless you only have like 20 points, then forget about it. Okay, but if you have like 45, 40, 50, 55, submit the application, because it doesn't cost you money. Okay, but don't, in the meantime, ACT government mentioned to us as well, don't waste our time. Okay, don't submit like 5 points of, you couldn't have 5 points, the minimum is 20 points. Okay, so meet your eligibility is more important than the points at this stage. Okay, how does it work when you have more points? Say next month, you meet all the criteria, submit your metrics point submissions, and then the months after, you didn't get invited for the first 2 rounds, but you get another 5 points for your same PT points. Submit another application. Okay. ACT governments don't have a big budget like the Home Affairs. They don't have a smart system. So at this stage, the point cannot be updated. Yep. So if you have more points, you submit another application. Literally speaking, if you're just too boring, you can submit like 1 application every month if you want. But you know they're going to choose the highest one anyway because it's go by point ranking system, right? And they say they're going to come up with something can delete the repeated application under the SNN eventually, but not this stage. So I would suggest you, as soon as you meet the criteria, submit your applications. And then if you have more points, it's another applications. Okay, this is how we're going to work. Because we just simply talk about other people living in ACT. I can spend little time just going over the overseas applications. You will
So
see.
any
Yep.
specific dates for the submit application?
The new guideline, which is probably a better looking one than this one, and more detailed one than this one, and along with the open list and closed list, should be published on ACT website, around, I would say before 29th.
Before
29th.
So we
because
can apply after 29.
probably the first of next month. That should open, maybe midnight, we don't know yet, okay? But if you meet all the criteria, if you already meet or very close to meet all the criteria, and you're expecting you'll be the first 1 round or 2 rounds applications, starting the application preparation now. At this part, I would suggest you to find an agent, you know, this time, because if you see the documents and if you're familiar with the previous application, it's much more easier than this one.
Yeah.
This one.
So do we have to provide the document at the same time? I just need to
No, but
fill out the application.
you have to fill out the application. You have to tell me how many points you have. So it's like when I tell you when we claim for 75 points, actually I already go through all your documents and saying you have 75 points.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's an invalid application anyway. You can get invited, you know, with the points of 75, but you couldn't prove it. So you spend $300, get an ACT officer to tell you your points cannot be proved. So it's, you know, you have to calculate. So before you submit the application, you probably want to see all the documents. I will give you a very detailed example. How do you claim your residency points? How do you claim your residency points? This is something, you know, everyone have their residency, records. Some of them may take very long vacations, you know, during a certain period of time. And how are we going to prove you've been living in ACT for 4 years? So this, we have to find other documents to prove to the case officer, I didn't leave, okay? So this is just residency. There's another document. What about spouse? How can you claim for spouse points? It probably will be more stricter or as stricter as the Home Affairs Office because you are claiming 25 points. I have to make sure you are not just met yesterday. Yep, and you just come up with a fake document. So those lots of documents need to be confirmed before claiming your final points. So this is something I would say, you know, if you're confident, spend some time. If you're not confident, looking for agents. It's much more complicated. We have a lot of headache looking through those documents. Much more complicated. Obviously, I probably won't go through the whole thing, but I'll give you because I have a lot of Chinese clients. I did some calculation for Sunderland. If they have been saying, I'll give you some example. If they have, or why interested in anything here, as an overseas resident, not living in ACT and never been to ACT, even you just pay a visit under tourism visa for 7 days, you get 5 points. What's the purpose for that? The government saying, you know, some people want to settle down in ACT, right? And they want to apply as an offshore applicants. But you got to visit ACT, have a look first, see how beautiful ACT it is. Well, making sense, 5 points. So they'll get 5 points. This is what 5 points. If they want to do it, this is pretty easy, 5 points. And then nomination, occupation, 20 points. Because there will be about 60 to 70 open occupation anyway. And we're talking about offshore applications. Some of them, lots of them, are going to have this occupation: graphic designer, interior designer. Those occupations. They probably have this 20 points. If their English is good enough, they have 10 points. Again, this is something tricky. If they can find a job, they get 10 points. Even without these 10 points, they still got a shot. They still got a shot. If their spouse is good enough, again, their spouses, have a very good English and have a very good employment back in their home country, will contribute their points. So I calculated this. I don't know how many people will be eligible, but the top applicants can show a very competitive points around 770, 75. Some of them can be as high as Canberra residents. So bear in mind, if you already meet all the criteria, apply as soon as possible. Because overseas applicants probably will have some information delay. They're going to have information delay, okay? They don't know this, okay? They have to think about it and this and that. There are lots of communication problems. But after a couple runs, they were starting to realize they had a chance. And we're talking about 190 visa, permanent residency. There wasn't many states in Australia now issue you the permanent residency visa straight away. Tasmania will give you maybe 489. Okay? Other states, they just don't invite many overseas applications. So it will attract certain very good candidates from overseas. And they're going to take some numbers, they're going to take some invitations. Okay? And then this is a problem, right? And let's see the solutions. Well, I won't say solution, but we're going to plan anyway. Okay, this is Chinese. Let's see. First of all, skill assessment. If you already have a skill assessment, then that's good. And if your skill assessment is not on the open list, and potentially you have a chance to get a skill assessment from the open list. I'll give you an example. You get a skill assessment as a accounting student, but your bachelor degree is designing, and you have like 1 year working experience back in your home country, and you can see graphic designer, interior designer are on the open list. Then which one you're going to choose as your nomination occupation? Definitely interior designer over the accounting, because they give you 20 points advantage. So if you have this kind of special backgrounds, I would suggest go for here, two, okay? Skill assessment 2. If you don't, then just stick to the skill assessment anyway, go ahead. And then you're going to meet your eligibility. This is very important. I would say this is something you're going to pay a lot of attention to. Meet the residency requirement. You can't do anything about it. Okay, residency, just leave it. Okay, but 2 things you're going to work in now. One is working experience. Get a qualified job as soon as possible. 3 months employment, 20 hours per week. If you can get a higher level ones, remember, higher level ones get your points quicker. Okay, so if you can get higher level ones, get it. If you don't have a higher level job, even Uber driver, stick to it. Okay, work for a longer time. And English is very important. PT, remember PT. Okay, I'm not selling PT, but it's very important. Okay, PT. And then after you have skill assessment and you meet the eligibility, go to metrics and come up with the high, medium, and low. But again, like this is something I don't know yet. I don't know what is high. Of course, if you tell me you have 90 points, well, that's high. Everyone can tell that's high. But if you're saying like low, 10 points, definitely very low. 20 is very low. But what about medians? I don't know what the cutting off line, maybe here, or maybe here. I don't know yet. Yep.
I mean, the max points is 170. 90 is considered high.
Again, Canberra residents. Oh, I don't think you can get 90. Really, I don't think you can. Maybe 75 or 80 or something. Calculate all the points, spouse points and all the points. Probably 70, 90, 70, 80 maybe. But average for NUUC graduates, 2-year residency, qualifications, find a job, English proficiency, other superior or professional proficiency, 60, I would say, 60, 65. Yeah.
3-year master degree plus 1 year professional course
4
Then
years.
6 years living in Canberra. Yeah.
You
And
have to
working
do-
6 years as well, so.
They'll get a lot of points, but you have to work the, you can work on the math, see how many points you have. Okay, particularly if you have, let's say, I don't know how many points, but as your description, I would say like more than 60. But in this case, try to meet the criteria as soon as possible. Okay, submit these applications because I would say the first couple rounds is not competitive, not very competitive, as most of people are preparing for meet the criteria. Okay, but as time goes by, this cutting off points are going higher and higher. Okay, and then if you're after several rounds you see like your points are not very competitive, try to get points, more points, get a nomination. If it's already very high, actually my idea would go like even it's high or medium, submit metrics anyway because it doesn't cost you money. Okay, just stay in the pool, Maybe luckily you'll be invited. Okay, but if it's very low, don't waste the time. Say your points are 20, 25, 30, 35. Yeah.
When is the first round of applicants
They say
assessed?
assessed.
Because I will be 6 months, out of 6 months of work, like in December.
Yeah.
I'm applying 29th November. So, like when I'm only required to show proof after they accept the application.
Any time of applications.
Or at the time. of
Any time application, you need to be all right. Even like for example, during the time of the applications or assessment, even the time goes by, it doesn't increase. You have to submit another applications. Maybe I speak too much. And then if your points is very, very low, and you don't think that's worth to try in ACT anymore, other states or other countries, if you want. Other states I will refer to Tasmania, South Australia, and Northern Territory. Okay, I'll talk about a little bit about Tasmania because some of you, if your points is already very low, I don't think it's very reasonable to stay in ACT. Okay, Tasmania will be your choice. Skill assessment. This is the major ones. You can see engineer, accounting students, computer students. Again, as I mentioned, if you like doing graphic design and stuff, go for this skill assessment. Find your second nomination occupation. For accounting students, assessment will go like these, particularly on the mention one thing. You're probably gonna ask me why still I'm gonna stick to the accountant major. Again, there was no, generally speaking, there was nothing faster than accountant skill assessment if you have nothing, which means no particular experience, no nomination occupation for sure. Same. AU, there was a quite famous major in AU called Asian Pacific Study. Yeah, AU Asian Pacific. Those people don't have direct relevance nomination occupations, master degree. They had a bachelor degree, which again, no relevant to nothing. And they don't have working experience. For those kind of people, the easiest way, the fastest way is go for non-award courses. It's quite interesting, like CPA. CPA recognize the eligibility for applying accountant application go like this way. One, you need to have a bachelor degree. Doesn't mind what major. You can study in science, bachelor level. And then you have to complete all the components required by CPA. Second thing. Third thing is you can show the proficient level of English, so 7 English. Interesting, let's go into part 2. Part 2 is all the components, majors, courses. You can get those knowledge from NU, proper education. You can also get them from CPA. They have CPA foundation exam, so you can attend the exam from CPA to get those qualifications recognized. The third pathway, interesting, non-award courses. Well, there's 2 universities in Sydney. They provide those fast-track courses. How fast? They can deliver 3 courses in 7 weeks. And all you need are 9 courses. So we're talking about 21 weeks. 21 weeks plus a bachelor degree, plus a proficient level of English, gets you a accounting skill assessment. And it works as perfectly as the ones you get from AU. Okay? Loopholes, I would say it's loopholes. Okay? But it has been recognized by CPA, by the department for many years. It sounds ridiculous, but it exists. Okay, so if you have no nomination occupation at all, this is something you can think about it. A job, okay, of course, find a job. And NU University Canberra. If you still think, well, I think, well, I'm not competitive now, but I have to study something. I'm already planning to stay in ACT for a long time. I want to study something. I like NU. Then just study NU or UC, because after you complete degree from NU or UC, and your length of residence will become longer, and you will share that advantage from the qualification anyway. People are going to ask, how long, how stable is this policy going to be? I don't know, but my understanding goes like this. This consultation takes a long time, and this policy was made after so many consultations and so many participations. I was expecting this one will last for a long, long time. Okay, the manager for migration programs in ACT, Juliana, she said, I hope this program can last until my retirement. Okay? I don't know how